Mary Ellen. I first met her in the late 60s at a meeting in New Orleans, and over the subsequent years we corresponded and met each other at meetings, but I want to tell you something from my student days. So my thesis was something that my thesis advisor wasn't really interested in. And at the end he said, you better check to make sure that this stuff hasn't been published already. So I did an old-fashioned search of math reviews, complete with little 3x5 cards and 30 years of math reviews, and that's a lot of searching. And then he said, why don't you write to Mary Ellen? So I did. I listed my results. A week or so, or some time passes, and back comes a letter. As Frank said, she didn't write back, she just annotated the things that I had sent her. And what she said was, I know these things. Oh, God. No PhD. So my thesis advisor, Ernie Michael, contacted her and said, what did you mean? Frank, I guess it was, he said, told you how she refereed papers. She saw whether she could prove them, and if so, that was good. Well, my advisor, Ernie Michael, found out from her, well, she meant that she could see these things were true and prove them. She had never seen them before, but so, PhD. Over the years, I met with her from time to time. There was a period in the 80s when I was lucky enough to be with Sheldon Davis and Dennis Burke at Miami of Ohio. And what made it even more lucky, in a way, was that Mary Ellen's daughter, Catherine, was a linguistics faculty member at Miami at that point. And so we were fortunate to have far more than our share of visits from Mary Ellen. She was a frequent visitor in our homes. She spoke in our department. She got to know our families. She was always enthusiastic and warm and kind and supportive, not just to the local mathematicians, but to their wives and families. My kids, who are now in their 40s, still remember her name. They don't remember much about her, but they remember her name as someone being at the house. It's unbelievably hard for me to think and realize that Mary Ellen's gone. She's kind of constantly in my mind. I've had a lifelong interest in linearly ordered spaces. She was always happy to talk to me. I kind of thought she had an interest in them. But, and it's certainly true, that anything I knew, she knew more. But unlike myself, who thought of these things as interesting objects in their own right, she saw them as tools for building. One of her early results found Suslin spaces being relating to some problem in Moore spaces, whatever they are. Suslin spaces, I can tell you, it's a linearly ordered set which isn't separable, and yet every pairwise disjoint collection of intervals is countable. Whether these things exist or not, well, people didn't know. Now they know. It's undecided by ZFC. Some models have it, some models don't. She used these things as tools for solving hard problems. In fact, I think that was the main thing she was interested in. I remember late in her life, I asked her what mathematics she had really been interested in, and she said she couldn't say. She just wanted hard problems. So she used the Suslin line, the existence, which at that point didn't quite know whether it was kosher or not. She used the Suslin line to construct a Doppler space. Later on, of course, she did an absolute example. Then there was this conjecture by Nikiel about something called monotonically normal space. Never mind the technical definition. It mixes normality, standard beginning topology normality, with partial order structure of a space of the subsets of a space. Anyway, it's very complicated. And there was a problem. People noticed that many of the theorems that were proved for ordered spaces also seemed to work, albeit with much harder proofs, for monotonically normal spaces. I'll give one example. I had proved that if you take an ordered space with a G delta diagonal, well, then it's paracompact. Engelking and I had proved that the existence of stationary subsets of regular cardinals is the obstacle to a good covering property in ordered space. She thought of those over 15 years. And one after another, she and her students proved them in this gloriously more general class. When she announced a certain theorem in a talk at a spring conference in 1992, I remember it clearly. I was sitting in the front row, or second row rather, and I must have seemed amazed because she turned to me and said, "I thought you and Angle King would like that one." Final thing I want to mention is another great result of hers. People noticed that monotonically normal spaces, if they're compact, behaved a whole lot like compact ordered spaces, but they couldn't say exactly what the relation was. And Nefield conjectured that every compact monotonically normal space is a continuous image of a compact ordered space, and nobody could come near it. I would have bet a lot of money against that. In a series of papers, which I'm glad I did not referee, 3-4 really hard papers, she proved that that's true. So that's a nice result for those of us who like that sort of thing. But it's a nice result for other people too. I've talked to many continua theorists who were interested in finding out the right generalization of the Hahn-Mazurkiewicz theorem. Remember, the Hahn-Mazurkiewicz theorem characterizes spaces which are continuous image of the closed unit interval in the real line. They are spaces that are compact, connected, locally connected, and metrizing. The question that some continua theorists were working on was, what if you take the unit interval and replace it by a separable, compact, connected, ordered space, a non-separable, compact, connected, ordered space? Combining Mary Ellen's theorem with work of Nikiel and Triebig, we now have the right Hahn-Mazurkiewicz theorem. A topological space is the continuous image of a compact connected ordered space, if and only if it is, well, I wish I had a slide so you could see these lists side by side, compact, connected, locally connected, and monotonically normal. This is an astounding result. She had a life filled with hard problem after hard problem. The only problem I can remember that was on the list of hard problems she told us she wanted to solve was M3 versus M1. That's still open. And the linearly Lindelof thing. Every other one that she thought was hard, she solved. I can't believe she's gone. Thank you all.